crash and burn.
Hey everybody, so tonight I'm going to be discussing the 1986 film When the Wind Blows. I saw this movie right when it came out too, give or take. I was like 7 when I saw this. My parents were tired of me always wanting to rent like horror movies and shit. And so I found this and I knew it was about nuclear war, but I also knew that my parents, if they saw it was a cartoon, or, you know, technically animated, but if they saw it was a cartoon, I knew my parents probably wouldn't take it too seriously and they'd let me rent it, which they did. And I was too young to see this, especially at this point it was very relevant. We were told that by 1985, 1986, the world wouldn't exist anymore because of the guarantee that the Soviets would attack us with a full-scale, like, nuclear attack, and then we would have a retaliatory attack and the world would end because of an endless nuclear winter. And this was assured, like, mutual assured destruction was going to happen. Like, we were all dead by 1985, 1986. That was a fact. It's books in school they had us reading, like, nobody wants a nuclear war and shit like that. I still have that at home. If I think of it, I'll take video of it and put it up in this quickly. But yeah, it was one of the books they had us read because, you know, Gen X wasn't going to grow up because we were all going to be covered in death and radiation. But yeah, so anyways, I saw this way too young. And this movie is so incredible. It's like, the thing that makes this movie so special is just how subtle the tragedy is. Like at one point, Jim and Hilda, the two principal characters, the only two characters you really see in this movie, Jim is discussing his old war buddies and the old, like, I think it was his lieutenant or whatever. And his wife Hilda's like, oh, come on, man, you're still talking about him? She's like, that war was like 1,000,000 years ago. She's like, he's probably dead. And as Jim is talking about it and as he's reminiscing, the ghost of whoever it is shows up in the room. And then when Hilda points out that the war was 1,000,000 years ago and that, you know, your lieutenant or whatever he was, he's probably dead, Jim reaches out for the illusion of his old war buddy as his old war buddy, or the illusion, turns and walks away and fades into nothing. Because it's true, Hilda was right. The war was 1,000,000 years ago. This was the 80s now. The war happened decades back. And that guy was probably dead. And there's Jim, like, reminiscing about these old times, and everybody's gone. And I thought that was really, it was indicative of what was going to come. But I thought that was so well done, and I thought it was so moving and so tragic that he reaches out for his buddy, just as his buddy sort of disappears into the ether of his memory again. Because there's, like Hilda said, there's a good chance he's gone. And then when they're preparing a meal, you see a tiny little mushroom cloud form out of the steam, out of the teapot. So you know what's coming. And so Jim decides to adhere to what the government's saying because an incoming attack could happen at any time because of what's happening in the Middle East regarding the Soviets and Afghanistan, I believe, specifically between the Soviets and the United States, was this weird little proxy war they had going. And that's what the third Rambo was about too. But anyways, so he builds a shelter with the doors and the pillows and the bottle of water and everything. And then it happens, you know? And you see a picture on the wall of them when they got married, like when they were young. And it shows the courtship and then them dating and then them having kids and the marriage and the happiness and everything. And then boom, you see the day the picture was taken. And then just as it sort of, like, it comes out of the world of the memory of them meeting and getting married and everything, and you see the picture on the wall one more time, the blast hits from the ICBMs that have landed, that have detonated. Whether or not they've ground burst or they've air burst, it's not good, right? Air bursting, if I'm not mistaken, I think that creates less fallout, but ground bursting means that when the ICBM actually touches the ground, it causes way more dirt to kick up into the atmosphere, and that makes the fallout that much worse. But it doesn't really matter because either way, you're going to get radiation sickness. And so, yeah, you see the picture just as it's like blown off the wall. And I shouldn't have been 6 when I saw this because this movie's fucked me up. But yeah, I loved how afterwards they sort of lead this flashlight existence and you don't really see much. You just see the filth and the decay and the destruction. And how Hilda at one point attempts to go to the bathroom, and a rat is in there already. And this really traumatizes her. And the whole time Jim has this unwavering conviction that the government won't forget about them. That they can still go to the pharmacist, or in this case, because it's British, the chemist, and they can still get medicine to help the fact that Hilda's gums are bleeding and she's losing her hair, and there's blood in her stool, and she has diarrhea because the radiation sickness is set in, of course. And the whole time, Jim believes, no, we can put the pieces back together. You know, the government, like, we're England, we're strong, we're proud, we're gonna pull together, everything's gonna be okay. But it's not. And in the end, they just decide to climb into those like paper bag things they made and just fade off, and they die. And that's how the movie ends, with that horrific scene of them in the paper, like the paper bags, getting ready to climb back into the little like door shelter that they've made in their living room. And you know that's going to be their final resting place. This movie's lethal. I shouldn't even be talking about this. The whole time I just feel like fucking crying. This movie is brutal. It's amazing. It's a really worthwhile experience. But these 1980s nuclear war movies are so unrelenting in their brutality and their honesty. And I think that's where I'm going to stop, because I'm feeling increasingly sad. So, like always, thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little over 6 minutes while I discuss the 1986 film, When the Wind Blows. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go and do something nice for somebody. But most importantly, never forget that the world is actually a way better place because you are in it. And I'm really glad that we didn't all die from nuclear war in 1985. Maybe we'll die in a nuclear war in 2025. Who knows? Fingers crossed. Have a good night.